So this is the latest trail running offering from Scott, the Kinabalu 3. This is actually the third generation of this shoe, and it's gone through a complete redesign this time round. And Scott claimed that they've improved comfort, protection, and running efficiency. So the last time I tested out a Scott trail running shoe was when we took their carbon plated ultra carbon RCs out for their first run. And I've got to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed with that shoe. Did feel quite heavy and quite uninspiring for a performance shoe, and wasn't that exciting to run in, if I'm honest. So I've got my fingers crossed that these are going to feel a lot more responsive out there on today's run. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Welcome back, folks, to another First Impressions video. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure, your friendly, informative, running-related YouTube channel. So the other week, myself and Liga got off on a week's holiday. We discovered a last-minute deal that was just too good to turn down. So we packed the bags and we flew off for an all-inclusive holiday to Turkey. If I'm honest, I was feeling a little bit fried, a little bit burnt out from sort of thinking about and creating content 24/7 over the last few years. So, you know, I really think that rest was needed, and it turns out that it definitely was, and it worked wonders. So we were really well looked after by the hotel staff. We definitely ate too much tasty food, probably drank too much, and we spent a lot of time just chilling out, lying down in the lovely warm sunshine. But towards the end of the week, both myself and Liga were itching to sort of get back to Cornwall and start creating content again for you guys at home. So we have got some awesome running videos heading your way over the next few weeks. But let's get back to Scott's latest trail running shoe, give you guys a few specs, and we're going to break down the construction in a bit more detail. So they retail here in the UK for £145. They have quite an unusual offset on the heel, so we've got a 7mm heel offset with a stack height of 29.5mm at the heel and 22.5mm under the forefoot. As far as weight is considered, not the lightest trail running shoe in the world, so weighing in at a pretty heavy 360 grams in my size, a UK 9.5. And as I actually hold them here, the shoes do feel quite bottom and sort of heel heavy, so it's going to be interesting to see how they perform on today's run. We've got this nice lightweight, super durable ripstop mesh used on the upper, and it does feel like it's going to be very hard wearing. We've got a well padded gusseted tongue inside that upper, so that should provide us with a nice comfortable lockdown around our midfoot. And the padding in the heel comes in the form of this sort of zonal padding, so it's like we've got a small pillow that wraps around the ankle collar and the heel cup. There's some good structure in the back end of the shoe from this sort of substantial heel cradle, and we've got some good protection up front from a toe bumper. Lots of overlays going on, so wrapping around the heel, working along the midfoot, wrapping around the toe box and the lace eyelets. That's just to give that upper a little bit more structure, but also to provide a little bit of extra durability. And I've got to say it, the Kinabalu 3 looks like it's a really well put together trail shoe, so should hold up to the mileage well. Moving down to the midsole construction, and Scott Running have used their kinetic foam. This is supposed to be lightweight, responsive, but also return 14% more energy than your standard EVAs. It's also a dual density setup, so if I push into the heel section, this foam is a little bit softer compared to the midfoot and the forefoot. I've got to say it, Scott are claiming that this is a lightweight foam, but I think it's actually the midsole that makes these shoes feel quite heavy, and I do have my concerns when it comes down to the balance of the shoe. Looks to have a really nice sort of rocker geometry in that midsole design, so they should feel nice and efficient. However, this is a real stiff midsole design, so if I try and twist the shoe sort of laterally immediately, or I try and flex it at the midfoot, I literally cannot budge it a millimetre. So I'm not really sure why this midsole is so stiff, because this is a non-plated trail running shoe. So again, going to be really interesting to see how responsive these are when I get them on my feet and I hit the trails. And finally, we've got the all-important outsole, and there's not actually a lot of information online about this outsole design, but we do have Scott's versatile lug pattern. So we've got these forward-facing chevrons under the forefoot that are going to supply you with good levels of traction when you're sort of driving in that forward motion on the flats or running uphill. And then on the heel, we've got reverse facing chevrons. So again, they're going to dig in, give you good levels of traction if you're running down any tricky, steep descents. We grabbed out the Run4Adventure ruler, measured the lugs, and it looks like we've got a 4mm lug depth. And then we get a good helping of Scott's durable rubber. So that should provide good levels of grip and durability. So there you have it, folks. Scott Running's latest trail offering, the Kinabalu 3. Now there's definitely some features of the shoe that I really like and I think they're going to perform well on today's run. However, there is some stuff that I'm just not fully convinced by when it comes to the design. So should be an interesting run out there today. And to be fair, you never can tell how a shoe's going to perform until you've got them on your feet and you're out there running in it. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. So we'll see you guys out on the trails. Okay, so definitely been spoilt while we've been in Turkey, back to the UK, back to Cornwall, and the wind's pretty strong, so hopefully the audio is okay, and I'm just starting to feel a few drops of rain, so hopefully it stays dry enough, long enough, so we can get this video filmed. 2 miles into the run, and you can see there from the footage that I had to soak up about 1.5 miles of tarmac. Shoes felt okay. The first thing I want to talk about is the fit and the feel of the upper. So I've always found that Scott shoes are true to size. So I went for a UK 9.5. The shoe is fitting perfectly on length. I would say it probably suits a more narrow foot shape, so I'm feeling really well held at the midfoot, super comfortable with that sort of padded, gusseted tongue, and good hold in the heel, which hasn't always been the case with Scott shoes that I've tried before. However, I would say the upper on the Kinabalu 3 is one of those uppers that feels like it needs a bit of bedding in, so it doesn't give you that sort of slipper-like feel straight out of the box. The ankle collar is quite stiff, the heel cup's quite stiff, so definitely needs to soften up a bit. It's not causing me any issues, but I would like to have a more comfortable feel straight out the box. So I think a few miles in we'll get a better gauge on how comfortable the upper actually feels. But like I say, it is fitting my foot shape extremely well. I feel very secure inside the shoe, so we're going to hopefully get a good sort of 6-7 miles in today. So let's crack on with the run. Even though I've lived in Cornwall for a long time, I'm not much of a surfer. I tried it a couple of times, couldn't do it, kept falling off, so I kind of give up on it. But there's a few people out there in the sea. Looks like there's some pretty clean waves as well, and I totally understand it. I'm sure it's great fun when you can do it, but I was rubbish and I just found it super frustrating. Okay, so we made it back from the run. Unfortunately, I did a piece to camera at the end of the run, and when I got home, I discovered that the SD card in the GoPro had got corrupted, so I couldn't use that final clip. Modern technology, hey, it doesn't happen very often, but when an SD card does get corrupted, it is very frustrating. It just actually started to rain, so I was making a mad dash for home, and by the time we got back, I managed to clock up 7.46 miles in the new Kinabalu 3. If I'm honest, my legs were feeling pretty heavy today, so the run was a lot harder than it should have been. But let's dive in to how the new trail shoe from Scott Running performed. I'm going to start off with all the positive stuff first, and then maybe we'll discuss the not so positive things, because I did have a couple of issues out there on the run when it comes to this new shoe. So first up, a very secure, comfortable lockdown around my midfoot from this gusseted tongue. Just the right amount of width in the toe box for my foot shape, and I had really good hold in the back end of the shoe. And like I mentioned on the run, this hasn't always been the case, and I have had a couple of sort of slippage issues in the heel with other Scott Running shoes that I've tested out on the channel. So the overall fit with my foot shape was pretty positive. The only issue I did have is that it's quite a deep shoe, so the ankle collar comes up quite high, and because it's a new shoe, that material around the edge is quite stiff. So when I was running on uneven ground or off camber, the outside edge of that collar on my left foot started to dig in a bit, and towards the end of the run I did have a bit of discomfort there, and it's still a little bit sore now if I'm honest. And this is something that I've had issues with when it comes to Adidas trail running shoes. A couple of years ago, ran in one of their shoes, the ankle collar kind of did the same thing, and I persevered with it hoping that, you know, it would soften up and it will bed in over time. Unfortunately it didn't, to the point where, you know, I had to just stop running in the shoe. So hopefully this is just a new shoe issue, and it's not going to be the same case in these. The outsole seemed to handle everything well out there on today's run, so good levels of grip on the rocky trails, but also on the tarmac sections that I had to run at the start. This 4mm lug gave me good levels of traction on the gravelly trails, in the soft sand, and through the short sections of mud that I had to run. I think with it being only a 4mm lug, it would struggle if it was very muddy and very boggy, but it actually coped with all the underfoot conditions really well today. Okay, so now for the not so good stuff. So Scott claimed that this kinetic foam used in the Kinabalu 3 is lightweight and highly responsive, and unfortunately I kind of found it to be the complete opposite to that out there on today's run. So the shoe does feel very bottom heavy, and that's because this midsole construction is pretty hefty. But then you've also got the level of cushioning from that foam, and I think this shoe gave me the firmest ride that I've had in a running shoe for a long time. What with the world of running shoes getting lighter and midsole foams getting softer and bouncier, this really does kind of give you an old school vibe, and I personally think that this kinetic foam needs a bit of a rethink. Scott also claimed that this kinetic foam should deliver 14% more energy return when you compare it to your sort of standard EVA foams. And you know, again, I didn't really pick up on that on the run, and it actually felt like it was returning no energy at all. It just felt quite unresponsive and undercushioned for my liking. I also mentioned earlier that it's very stiff at the midfoot, and again, unfortunately, that carried over onto the run. And you know, this is a very rigid shoe where it actually feels like you've got a carbon fiber plate worked into that midsole. It's so stiff. And towards the end of my run, about 6 miles in, I started to get a bit of a hot spot forming just behind the ball of my big toe on my left foot. And I think that purely comes down to this shoe just being so stiff and having no flex. Luckily, it didn't leave me with any blisters, but I feel if I had to run another couple of miles, then I would definitely have had a much bigger problem. I did, however, really like the rocker geometry worked into that midsole design. It made the shoe feel nice and efficient on the flatter, more compacted sections of trail or on the sections of road that I had to run. So wrapping up with a quick conclusion after my first run in the new Scott trail shoe, and I personally think that the Kinabalu 3 isn't the trail running shoe for me. First up, it's just too heavy, you know, weighing in at 360 grams in a UK 9.5, so not a particularly big size. So you can imagine if you're running in an 11 or 11.5 or a 12, this is going to be a super heavy running shoe. But it's not just the overall weight, because I also think it's not the best balanced running shoe. So what with the upper being nice and lightweight, but then that midsole construction being super heavy. And speaking of the midsole, it's just way too firm for me when it comes to the cushioning, and I really do think I'd have a sort of underfoot comfort issues on longer runs, especially if they're on more sort of compacted, drier trails. And then we've got that overly stiff issue as well. what with the world of sort of running shoe development moving on so quickly these days, I think that kinetic foam has been well and truly left behind when you take into consideration its competitors. I think it really needs to be brought up to speed when it comes to that foam and that midsole design. Maybe a softer blend of kinetic foam that's going to give you a more comfortable ride but also return a bit more energy. So there you have it, folks, my first impressions after my first run in the new Kinabalu 3 from Scott Running. Unfortunately, not the most positive of first runs, but you know, that's running shoes. You know, what works for one might not work for another, and I really don't think these are going to work out well for me, but it'd be great to hear your thoughts, guys. So if you've picked up a pair, you're running in it, you've clocked up some good miles in them, let us know in the comments how you're getting on with the shoe. Do you totally disagree with what I'm saying? Are you loving the feel and the performance of the shoes, or are you having similar issues to what I had today? So let us know all about it in the comments below. It's busy here at the channel. Good busy, but busy with lots of new shoes arriving daily. So just managed to get our hands on Innovate's new Trailfly and Trailfly Speed. You guys have been asking us to review both of those shoes, so I've managed to get hold of a pair of both, and we're going to be testing them out on the channel soon. I've also finally just got my hands on a pair of Saucony's new Endorphin Speed. We've had a bit of a wait, so I do apologise that we haven't reviewed that shoe sooner. And then last but not least, we've also got New Balance's latest Go Faster carbon plated racer, the Fuel Cell Elite V4, to test out. So keep your eyes peeled, guys, because there's going to be lots of first impressions videos heading your way soon. But for now, guys, really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget, if you did, to like, comment, share and subscribe, because it really does help the channel out with the crazy world of the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, thanks for supporting. It really is appreciated by myself and by Liga. We'll be back on the channel very soon, and as always, stay safe and keep on running. We thought getting away from the mobile phones, the cameras and the laptops was what was needed, we had a fantastic time away. The hotel staff really looked afterwards. Nah. They're going to retail in the UK for £145. They come with quite an unusual offset height.